Happy Monday, everyone. It's Matt Donahue with your weekly update from Mission Financial Planners. Hey, markets are up, volatility's down. It's a good time to be an investor. Let's jump into it. We're going to talk what's going on in the market. We're going to talk some tax tips, some philosophy, and give you some healthcare ideas to start your week. So let's jump into it. Some record highs from last week. NASDAQ set a record high on Tuesday. S&P 500 and Dow followed suit the next day. All of that was lifted by fresh inflation data and a brighter outlook for the eventual interest rate cuts. Friday, the Dow went above 40,000 for the first time ever to cap its fifth positive week in a row. Some inflation relief on Wednesday. Markets were up about 1%. Bond yields fell after an inflation report came in lower than expected. Well, actually, I should say in line with what was expected. The consumer price index rose 0.3% over the previous month and 3.4% over the same period a year earlier, interrupting a recent trend of hotter than expected inflation data. That data lifted investor expectations around what yields are going to look like and what interest rate cuts might be. So what we saw was the yield of the 10-year Treasury dropped. It was at 4.42% on Friday's close, which was down from 4.69% the week previous. Gold is glittering. The price of gold futures on Friday went on a tear as well. They are now, or they were over a record $2,400 per ounce level. That was last reached in mid-April. Year-to-date, gold is up nearly 17%. Most of that gain has come from since mid-March. China dumped a ton of money last week into its real estate market. On Friday, they announced measures that they hope will lift their struggling commercial and residential property markets. Among other things, China's central bank reduced the minimum down payment for mortgages and removed the floor on interest rates for first and second homes. Volatility's down. So an index that measures investors' expectations of what the market's going to do in the short term fell into negative territory year to date and slipped to its lowest level in 5 months. The SIBO volatility index has fallen about 38% since its record high on April 15th. Growth is outperforming value this year by a wide margin. U.S. large cap growth stocks are outperforming their value peers. The growth benchmarks, are up about 13% year to date versus nearly 9% for the value index. And retail sales flattened though. So U.S. retail sales were flat in April. That marked a slowdown from the previous month when sales climbed 0.6%. Most economists had been expecting an April sales gain of around 0.4%, but it was unchanged. So higher interest rates, persistent inflation, people probably being a little more careful with how they're spending their money. Some reports this week, nothing for today or tomorrow, just today or tomorrow. Wednesday, we're going to see the minutes from the April 30, May 1 meeting of the U.S. Federal Reserve. We're going to see existing home sales from the National Association of Realtors. Thursday, we're going to see unemployment claims. We're going to see new home sales there as well. And then Friday, University of Michigan Index of Consumer Sentiment. That's the one I'm interested in. What are people really thinking? And durable goods orders from the U.S. Census Bureau. Philosophy quote of the week: quality over quantity. This one's kind of personal to me because I love books. I kind of collect books, and I realize I will probably never read the books I own in the course of my lifetime. So this one actually kind of hits home. This is from Seneca, and it says, "What's the point of having countless books in libraries whose titles could hardly be read through in a lifetime? The learner is not taught but burdened by the sheer volume, and it's better to plant the seeds of a few authors than to be scattered about by many." So that's books. that's me. But another way to look at that is, who are you spending your time with? What are you spending your time on? Are you scattered all over the place and then you feel like you're really not getting anything done? Or are you trying to be very selective in terms of who you spend your time with and what you spend your time doing? It's probably better to be more selective. Keep in mind too, with a lot of these philosophy quotes, it's always a work in progress, right? Nobody's perfect. You're going to have good days and bad days just like everybody else does. Okay, tax tips. This is timely because we're about a month out of tax season, and we know tax season never ends. But 10 things to know about IRS notices and letters. 2 things I'm going to say right up front. The IRS will never reach out to you through social media or a phone call. So if you get a phone call from the IRS, it is a scam. Okay, I'll say that very simply. It is a scam. They will not reach out to you through social media either. Okay, you have to call them or send them a letter. They will send you letters in the mail. They will not call you. They will not reach out to you through social media. So the other important thing I'll say too is when you do get a notice from the IRS, do not panic. Do not panic. There is nothing you have to do today to try to respond or fix that. Okay. Remember, an IRS notice can be a good or a bad thing. It could be, hey, you overpaid your taxes. We're going to send you some money. It could be a bad thing, saying maybe you didn't pay enough. Okay. But each notice has specific instructions in terms of what to do. You might get a notice that states that they have made a change or correction to your tax return. Review it, compare it to your original return. If you agree, you don't need to reply unless there's some instructions about, hey, you got to make a payment or, you know, you owe some penalties or something like that. But if you don't agree, you have to respond. You have to write a letter stating why you disagree, include any information and documents you want them to consider, mail your reply with the bottom tear off portion of the notice, and give them at least 30 days. Now, realistically, and I can say this from last year because I got audited last year, it's going to take them more like 12 weeks at this point to respond. That's okay, right? That's totally okay. The other thing, too, I would say is have a tax professional represent you. It's the same reason that if you ever go to court, you have an attorney represent you. It's not to pay a fee, it is to get someone who can represent you who knows the rules, who isn't emotionally tied to your money like you are, and is professional in terms of dealing with the IRS, which means they've dealt with the IRS before. Okay, so you want to make sure, get a professional. I mean, absolutely get a professional. You shouldn't have to call or visit the IRS for most, or an IRS office, I should say, for most issues. Um, just have a copy of your return and notice with you if you do happen to call. That helps them answer your specific questions. Again, let the professionals handle it. CPAs can talk to the IRS on your behalf. Enrolled agents can talk to the IRS on your behalf. So can attorneys. Keep copies of any notices you receive. And just remember, they send stuff by mail. If you want more information, IRS Publication 594 is the IRS collection process. And get professional help. Remember, there's this cool old saying, the attorney who represents themselves has a fool for a client. Don't forget that. Health tip of the week. So we're still focused on mental health because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I am turning 51 today, and I am, I'm 51. But the tip for the week is going to be keys to brain health as you age. So again, this comes from the Mayo Clinic. They have a book they've published called The Mayo Clinic on Healthy Aging. Might be worth checking out if you're interested in that. But um, couple keys for you. One, stay physically active. Now, this is interesting. People who get aerobic exercise over time will develop a larger hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that makes new memories. Okay. What that does is, and if you can get more than 150 minutes of exercise a week, that also, not only will you have a larger hippocampus, it also reduces your risk for dementia and Alzheimer's, or for dementia turning into Alzheimer's. Okay. Make sleep a priority. Sleep is basically detoxing your brain. And so, when you think about the hard plaques that can build up in your brain that can lead to things like Alzheimer's, well, a good night's sleep is what helps kind of flush that stuff out. Okay. Stay socially engaged. If you have a lot of social contacts and you regularly engage with other people, you're half as likely to experience memory problems. So don't isolate yourself. Get out, do some volunteer work, join an organization or two that you've always been interested in. Personally, I've always kind of struggled with that stuff because I'm a history guy. So I joined the histories, whatever. And yeah, there's some interesting people there that maybe I don't really want to know that well, right? So I always personally kind of struggle with that. But don't let yourself become socially isolated. Keep stress in check. This is hard, right? I mean, a lot of times the stress we create is between our own ears. We're the ones who are creating the stress, creating these issues for ourselves. So just, try really hard. If you got to learn how to meditate, if you've got to, go to church and sit in a pew because it's peaceful for you, go do that, right? Go do that. Go do whatever it is for you that works. Okay. But there's, exercise, exercise, exercise. There's a lot that you can do. Another thing, eat brain-friendly foods. So Mediterranean diet can help prevent dementia. Mediterranean diet's going to have fruit, vegetables, olive oil, legumes, whole grains, and fish. Those are all good for overall brain health and can play a role in reducing dementia risk. Um, One other thing is if you're worried about mental decline, that healthy diet plus exercise will really help offset the risks of a mental decline as well, and reduce your risk of stroke. The blood vessels that bring blood to your brain, like we were talking about sleeping, that's how your brain gets detoxed and stuff, right? Is that blood flow that goes there. So try to make sure from a diet and exercise standpoint, you're doing the right things to make sure you've got the right stuff going on in your body. That's it for the week. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the your week, and we'll talk soon. Bye bye.